When I started my career in documentary filmmaking, I admired those thriving in the industry. I was right where you are, dreaming big and scared of stumbling. Years later, I went from distributing my very first documentary to filming in over 35 countries. And now, this podcast is where we share skills, stories, and lessons with filmmakers, including those who won Oscars and Emmys, to help each other grow and create impactful documentaries. What is the role of subtext? What is the role of poses when you edit a documentary? I tried to find the answer with the new guest, Niels Pagh Andersen. He is the editor of The Act of Killing and The Look of Silence. If you're not familiar with these two documentaries, you should go watch it right now. I'm serious. These are really good documentaries, and not by chance, Werner Herzog said that there will not be another documentary like this two in the next 20-25 years. I've watched many other documentaries after that and after these two, and I have to say, I can agree with them. So I remind you guys before we jump into the episode that if you have any questions regarding documentary filmmaking, you just need to go on howwefilm.com, scroll at the bottom of the page. There's a section where you can submit any questions regarding documentary production, documentary editing, whatever. I'll produce a video and we'll post it online on the specific podcast called Documentary Question. And I don't think I need to add much more other than if you like this episode, please subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Niels, I have to say, thank you so much for joining this. Like, to me, I was shocked, just to read the book. And I told you, like, I would have been totally fine just, sending you a message and say, thank you for writing this. Mm-hmm. Because literally in the book, I had to pause for every paragraph, not every chapter. Uh-huh. And I had to rethink about the way I approach filmmaking in general. Okay. So, and I still do. Like, in the last 2 days, I read the book again. Because I'm like, I really need to grasp on this concept. Like, you are the cause of why I'm actually thinking to produce another documentary. It's like, I kept it in my head for a long time. Because I think I realized reading through your book that I wanted to control a lot. And when I finished to read the book, I felt free. I'm like, I'm not crazy, I'm not completely crazy. And talking about emotions, I feel like in the conversation, I usually go a lot with my emotions more than, like, there is a logic to it. Yet to me, it's driven by curiosity and what I perceive from you, instead of like, coming up as a diagram with all the questions and all of that. I feel like I usually say this: when we sit at the table and we're having a conversation because we're interested in a topic, we don't think, oh, I should have prepared the question. Like, no. That would be crazy, to come up at the table with friends and say, okay, tonight I have this questions for you. Like, that's not life, right? And so, maybe if you have to go to a politicians and you really need to dig down certain bullet points, I understand. But I think I do have that in my mind, and I hope that everything will come out.
By reading my book, you had found out that you were controlling too much.
Yes, completely.
And what I think there is, even though I'm saying what we have in documentary film is the authentic now, this moment that is unique, that can't be repeated, and that feeling of authenticity, it is our big our big advantage. It is in fact what in fiction the directors is trying to imitate with the actors. They should build up in the text, the script. They should try working with the actors, but of course also in the story, that it has reason, that it has logic, and so on. But mainly with the actors, that they become the person. and
Mm.
that is in the subtext. Uh,
Yes.
uh, that because we all know when we have seen films,
Mm-hmm.
bad actors,
Mm. Yeah.
there it's text, it is not believable human beings. It is actors who are saying lines.
And Niels, when do you think for you that clicked for you? You know, in your work, is there like is there been a specific project that, you know, kind of a prompt that, because my understanding from the book, Niels, is that you did start with fiction.
Yes.
So you were in the in that world, right? You wanted to be in this, you know, land of gods, and then you actually made it there, right? And all of that. And then so you were working on fiction, and then, you know, you went on to documentary, and you talk about how you basically somehow you rediscovered the magic of storytelling through documentary. But there has been a particular moment for you where you realized, huh, you know, if we keep just working with this structure, with this cliche.
I think we human beings, we have a big ability
Mm,
to reach each other on a subtextual level.
mm-hmm,
Uh, but because we human beings, we want to be in control.
mm,
Then we are saying, it's what we are saying, and so on. But in fact, when we meet a new person,
mm-hmm,
a person we have never met, we are looking at their body language. Are they looking? We are looking
mm.
immediately in their
In the eyes.
eyes, and so on, because there are so much information in that subtext for all of us.
Yeah,
So, but it's very hard to describe.
it is. But I think in the book
And
you
and
did.
and that was exactly one of the reasons why I wrote this book, because there are millions of books about storylines and three-act
Mm,
structure and so on, but I felt that they were missing a very important element,
yeah.
and that was the whole subtextual understanding, and authenticity is for me, it has nothing to do with factual truth.
Mm-hmm,
It has it is that it's a subjective emotional truth,
mm,
that I believe in what you are saying. I
mm.
believe that you are a genuine, honest person,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So in my career, I would say, of course, I have also in fiction been uh, thinking when we were choosing takes. Of course, which take is number four better
Mm,
than number
mm, mm.
one, and so on. That was the the reasons why we took take number four, and then we called it something else. It's the best take, but it was built on the same emotional understanding of, this is better. So of
Yeah,
course I have worked with it, but I have not been conscious about it in the same way. I haven't put it into words.
mm,
I think that came much later, and it also came out of when I started quite late, started to teach, where I
mm.
had to articulate what I was doing. And I had to, instead of me and my director were saying, wow, this works, and then I had to explain why it worked. So for me, the whole teaching had been an extreme extremely important learning process.
Mm.
Also because I didn't go to any film school. I
Yeah.
didn't have a terminology about
Mm.
what I was doing. So, but I think this, and that I think has been an advantage in
Mm.
some way as an editor. Instead of you go to a film school, of course you practice, but you also get a lot of words and a lot of concept and a lot of thinking.
Mm. Mm.
But where you haven't really maybe learned how to understand or how to use all those.
Like
Uh,
the dynamics of storytelling.
yeah,
Like it's like you get assigned the homework, you go and try to do it, and then you keep doing that for the rest of your life. That's what
yeah,
I think it is. Like I would like to read something that you mentioned in your book, like so that
yes,
we also like can talk about that. So you say in your book that we can teach dramaturgy in film school. It is an
yeah,
exact science with finished models. So we can tell students what is right and what is wrong.
mm,
It's expensive to make film, and good dramaturgy provides a sense of security, a reassurance that in the end, we will get a good film. But despite this, dramaturgy is still only one of many tools that we filmmakers have at our disposal. If
mm,
one can fill out this construction with life and subtext, the film will become mechanical and dead, and the characters will become cliche. Like, this is the first time I'm reading this.
mhm,
Every book I get, they keep repeating the same salsa, they keep repeating the same dance. They
yeah,
change a little bit the music, but then you're dancing the same dance. And the
mm,
music is pretty much the same. It's like, oh, but this time we added a little bit of guitar. Yeah, but basically the melody and the music is the same. So really, like, we're not changing. And then I read from this book and it starts to feel like jazz. Like, it's a completely different thing. I'm like, man, somebody's talking about certain things that I felt during the shootings and directing and doing other things. And I'm like, so what I've been learning like on my own is not craziness. And somebody for the first time was able to explain what I was getting from intuition. I guess though that it was a lonely journey for me
mm,
when I started to touch onto these things. I'll give you an example.
ah,
Oftentimes I interview public speakers, right? Figure that are,
ah, ah,
they're
ah,
so because exactly, just because of the fact that they have to always be in front of people, they know how to perform, right? They
exactly,
know how to go there. But
exactly.
usually the work that I do is never about that. It's never
Yeah,
about the public figure.
yeah,
To me, is always about who is the man behind the public figure.
yeah,
And whenever we sit down, I started to realize, man, there are moments that I am able to take them away from this place and we go together in another world. And when we start the journey, usually you can feel it. This is not anymore, the person, like the public figure. This is the person. I'm talking with the person. And then I noticed that they also happen when you turn off the camera. All of the sudden the person switch,
yes,
right? Like
yeah,
they are like we started talking and the tone, like everything is more relaxed.
yeah,
We're not trying to perform. And so I noticed that, and I remember a few years ago I said, okay, I'm gonna start to try exercises in order to move in that direction while we're filming, because I cannot allow that to happen only when we stop. Even if I'm able
yeah,
to steal one or two questions
yeah,
when they think the camera is off, I will still not be able to have the whole interview like that. But that's what I need,
ah,
right?
ah, ah,
And so what happened is that I started to have more informal conversation, and usually, if I can, I try to have a meal before the interview. And so when we are having the meal together, I try to bring that mood in front of the camera, and I try to not make any correction or
mm,
interruption. And usually, the closer the table is to where we're gonna do the interview, the better. If we could do it
mm,
at the table, it's even better. Where
ah,
there are already the camera going,
ah,
because it's like it's the flow keeps flowing. that way. There's no
Uh-huh.
interruptions where they have a moments where they become, self-conscious and they switch into,
Exactly.
professional mode, acting mode. I'm gonna tell you what you want to hear, or so what we're talking about here. Sorry if I took a little bit of a long time to explain this,
No, no,
but
no, no.
but to me, it's like, okay, so there is something there. So it's true, the three, and I like the fact that you don't diminish the three act structure. You don't say, we shouldn't do that, or like, this is the way or whatever. But you say, well, that's one of the tools that we have. But then if we keep just that tool, this is ain't working for
Yeah,
this reason. And that to me, it's like, all right, so I'm not crazy. I'm not
no.
alone in this. And actually, there is something to it, and somebody that is able to explain this really well. I felt like, and then I'll let you talk about it. I felt like for years I've been walking on the surface among many other people. And with this book, you were the only one. Maybe there are others, but I am not aware of it. So I'm not saying you're the only one. But to me, this was the first time where somebody didn't stay on the surface and started to dig a huge hole.
Mm,
It went all the way to the middle of the earth and came back with diamonds, and he was like, look what's under the surface. Look
mm,
what's there. If
mm,
we start to, create holes and dig down, there is way more than just the three act structure.
mm.
And that has been mind blowing to me. So that's why I was curious to hear, if
Yeah,
there was a specific moment for that, even because it takes a certain level of honesty and not just being interested in the success or the social status, like whatever film brings in, which is also something that really easily happen for young people that get into the industry.
of course.
Does that make
But
sense?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think like you, like I was telling with myself about when did you realize? I think we, as I said, like you have been conscious, not you have had your emotional reading. You
Mm,
would say, when I shut off the camera, something
mm,
happens. That so I think it's all of us. So it's much more this that we are in some way what we want from our characters.
mm,
It is that they, because then we see them as human beings, they are giving up the performance, right?
mhm,
They, that is what good characters are doing. They are showing themselves. They are not
mm,
protecting themselves behind a facade or intelligent words and so on. They give. And of course, it's scary.
mm.
It's scary to lose control,
Yeah.
both for the people in front of the camera, but
Mm-hmm.
also for us.
Mm,
So making documentary and also to a certain degree also fiction, but
mm,
let's stay with
mm, mm, mm,
documentary. It is also that the filmmakers are are daring to go into that unknown space. And what I've experienced a lot of times with the an interview, it is, for example, where the interviewer, the director, is
mm.
afraid of pauses. You know,
Is
when
afraid of what?
pauses,
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
or
yeah. Oh,
they,
yeah.
and then there come a long answer to something, and then comes maybe a pause, and then they're directly with the next question. And what do you think? And so, but this sometimes, a lot of times, if you dare to be in that
Mm,
space, then comes the most important sentence. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. This little reflection, and then the there's happening. So always give, don't be too fast, because also dare to believe that. Secondly, I always say to my directors, if there's interview, it is wait with the juicy questions until your characters are tired. Because of course, when this is not, yeah, but of course also all of us are losing when we are more tired, when we are starting a conversation. Now the little policeman is on the head and is controlling, and now I have to say something wise about my book, blah, 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 But at a certain point, after talking, 45 minutes or something, then I don't have the same energy, or the little policeman is getting tired. And that is the moment where the more, not juicy, but the more personal question. I have also, I remember, and it wasn't a film I was editing, but it was a film that I was consulting. And it was about a famous Danish comedian who was a performer. And now he was making a new show, and now he wanted to be real personal, and it wasn't just, it's my life, it's real me. But the way, because he had kind of articulated it so many times in interviews and all before, he was saying it in this performative way. But then there were some interviews with him where he was driving. And there you felt him much more, because, of course, he should also watch out for the traffic and so on. So suddenly you felt him much more. So this, that somehow you can find tricks that suddenly open up another space and show more authentic moments. And for example, I haven't talked. I don't think I've written so much about it in the book. But for example, in Act of Killing, the in some way, if you also have seen The Look of Silence, there is these killers of Addie, that Addie is sitting watching on a screen. It is, in fact, Josh's early
Footage.
early research when he was looking for a main character. Before he found Anwar. And there, Josh also, there's these two old men walking down to the river and are boasting about, but suddenly Josh is asking, how did you do it? So suddenly they are starting to reenact, and the kind of physical memory open up another space in them. So all the time we have to find ways not to cheat our characters, but to go into another space.
I don't think it's about cheating. I think I think generally speaking, even in life, we have a hard time to admit our weaknesses and, or our faults. And I think that I noticed that generally speaking, when you help people to project themselves over onto a puppet or whatever it is, another character from a movie, like, if you ask somebody, what if you will be a character from a movie, like, who would that be? And it will be, or if you will be a superhero, what would be your superpower and what would you do with it, right? In that moment, he's telling you very deep stuff about him, right? Because he's not talking about himself. And so at that moment, he feels free because I'm not talking about me. I am projecting myself over what I would do if I will have a power, right? Now, if you see the difference, if somebody tells me, well, I would want to help people in Africa, for example, like you, then it's like, okay, like, we're going somewhere, we're going that direction. If he tells me, well, I would like to kill all the politicians and I would like to be in charge so that I will make this country better, well, I'm like, we're on a totally different route now, right? But he will never tell me, oh, I wish all the politicians would be killed, right? He will never tell me that, right? So I don't think it's about cheating. I think it's just a way to really, for me personally, I'm curious. And second, I'm like, I care about the people I have with, that I am, I'm filming with. I deeply care. And so the fact that I deeply care, it means that I'm not trying to, find tricks to trick you in. To me, that's not what it is about. For me, filmmaking is a platform to love people. And so at that point, I feel free to get to know you for real. And so to me, it's not to trick you, it's to get to know you better. Because the fact that whatever you're going to say is not going to change the love I'm going to have for you. Or I'm not going to judge you, right? So to me, that's what it's about. And I think you mentioned the act of killing. It seems to me that your principle, like it seems to me that Joshua was the perfect director for you to edit his movie. Because what he brought you, and tell me if this is wrong, what he brought, what he served you on a golden plate, it was exactly a lot of that material because he went with the approach of not just filming them, like he knew what he was doing when, the act of killing, just to give a little bit of a context, is, based on the, the genocide that happened in Indonesia, where it's the only country that, I don't know to this day, but at least when the documentary was released, the people that committed the genocide are still in power. And what he didn't, I don't think he tricked, but he did use this, let's say, metaphor where he suggested to the killers and the people that are involved in the massacre, like, let's make a movie about where you are the character and you also, act yourself, basically, right? Like, that's what he did. Like, he's, telling them to perform themselves. But the thing that is crazy is that he knew and that he needed to wait for the crack to happen. As these people portrayed themselves, the most interesting part was not when they were acting. It was also behind the camera and what was happening and how they were boasting about all these killings. And then, at some point the crack happens in the real life. What do you think about that? Like, I mean, would you agree with that? Like, no, that it was the best.
No, but I think in these operation, I think where I was in my career, I don't mean, I would rather say, I hate that word, in my cinematic development, just was just exact the right moment, and also, so he was the absolutely right director for me, and the other way around.
I agree. I mean, at least from what
Because,
I from what
yeah,
I've seen.
so it was a very where we uh, because of course uh, I think just as much wilder than and the, but also a little more conceptual and also intellectual. He's a great
Mm,
intellectual,
mm,
and I had so much experience.
mm,
Also, how do we tell? And it was a huge material filmed over 7 years, so it was also a learning process.
mm.
So, but I am a, a big humanist in a way.
Mm,
I I can't work with characters unless I fall in love with them, even
mm,
killers.
mm,
So this what we were bringing together, that making not only having these wild scenes, but also we are spending so much time with Anwar just to, what should I say, human characteristic. We are
mm,
spending, and we had so much fantastic material.
mm,
We had 5 or 6 of those total insane reenactment scene
mm,
that you could build a whole uh, film around just one of
mm,
them
mm,
that we had to cut out,
mm,
but and spend time on Anwar testing sunglasses.
mm,
Spending 1.5 minutes on that with his grandchildren, feeding the chickens and so on, also to humanize him
mm,
in a way. So I think it was the right. We met like falling in love. It is, you meet at the right moment. There's an energy that fits there. So that. But the other thing I think that is very important, it is that after the act of killing, it has inspired a lot of film makers in different way, and I see a lot that are using performativity,
mm.
but only are using the performativity. And
Um,
and what we, if it only had been the performativity, I'm not sure at all I had worked on that film,
yeah.
because then it would just have been some monsters that I could diss or laugh about, or kind of this. So the whole thing was that we were hunting the crack in the performance. It wasn't the performance itself. It was when they couldn't
Mm,
play their roles anymore, when the doubt came in, when they were losing the control of their performance. So that was what we were hunting. And that is where I see a lot of these films that say, I'm inspired by Joshua Altman, but they haven't understood the core of the film, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, I think yeah, and yeah. The reason why I think like you guys seems to be the perfect combination is because now you have an editor that is interested in the subtext and not just in the 3 act structure, and he's
uh,
willing to
uh,
play with that.
uh,
Well, Joshua was playing exactly that dynamic as you see somebody acting themselves in a movie, as we were saying, there is that projection.
uh,
But then also he was really smart in waiting for the crack. He could have done the same thing that many other people try to do after, in just copying or getting inspiration from that. But he was smart enough to waiting for the crack. Like he knew what he was doing while he was filming. He wasn't just, it seems to me it didn't just happen. I'm not sure.
no. But of course, he was he was continuing filming
Hmm.
over for a long time. I'm not sure he knew what. Of course, from day one, he
Ah.
wasn't sure at all, and that is also this, that we filmmakers also have to go out in the chaos and the unknown.
Hmm.
Of course, he couldn't predict. He had some feeling, some idea, and
Ah.
and then he was saying, and of course, he was slowly pushing uh, these guys,
Yeah.
and he was saying, "Okay, can you walk down?" And so on. Okay, yeah, and gaining their trust and were playing on their vanity. Here
Mm,
I'm coming from a university in London, and we have to know the historical
mm,
fact, but the whole filmmaking and the filmmaking fantasy, and they started to be something. And for example, Herman,
mm.
the chubby guy,
Yeah,
who is, first of all, he's not a killer, he's too young,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he's mainly muscles, and he's low key. Suddenly he was kind of, wow, I'm something because
Mm,
I'm filmed, and
mm,
found out that he was a great actor. And
mm,
then just slowly push and say, but what about that you are playing Amina in this story, and that we put on you in a female dress? Yes, yes, yes. And so slowly it has been pushing and seeing, and also to, because what was so important was that not only seeing these, and that is a complication of the character driven film, it is
mm,
that it's seen as, in a very kind of Western almost, that we are king in our own life. It is, you know, the dramaturgy, it's, we, it is what we are doing. Are we doing the right thing? We have to fight for blah, blah, blah.
mm, mm,
And are we a success or are we a failure?
mm,
You know,
mm, mm,
but of course, we are part of a society like the
mm,
peasant that was living 200 years ago, and thought that the earth was flat and God decided everything. We
mm,
are part of our time as well.
mm,
So what was so important was also to get all the political layer,
mm,
that seeing these guys as
mm,
part of a political system.
mm,
And of course, it took time to get the trust of the top political and layers, and get in there and to film with them as well, because they are the one who are orchestra wars and
mhm,
genocide all over. And then, because it's so complicated to film that and to get access to those, we are always filling the small guys that are doing the
mm,
dirty job.
mm.
And then we are saying they're psychopaths or they are so on. But the whole political picture, that was also one of the reasons why Joshua was, I think, filming over 6, 7 years.
7 years, I think.
Yeah,
Like the whole amount of time he's been there, I think it was 8, if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
yeah. Of course, he wasn't there
And
constant. He went back and forth and to
yeah,
Europe, but
but uh,
but he's,
but Niels, like he came back with 1,100 hours or 1,200 hours of footage,
yes,
right? Then I think he was in London where a few guys helped him to, like
he
at
was
least
working
to
with
to with
three junior
to
editors.
yeah. And then you started to bring all this material and started to, to work on it. This conversation for me has been personally inspiring, and I know that sometimes it can feel a little bit too philosophical, but yet when you have been dealing with the timeline for a few years, I think you are looking for that kind of depth that Niels brings in. So I would suggest, if this feels a little bit too deep, try to put in practice. And also I would suggest that you get his book. It's called Order in Chaos, and I think that there are many practical tips that you can find there. So the other thing I want to mention is that I asked specifically Niels, how do you boil down 1,200 hours into a 2 hour documentary. And if you're looking for that specific answer that he gave me, you can find it on the exclusive content in the howwefilm.com page. You can subscribe for free, and it's going to be forever for free. You just need to subscribe, access, and you're going to be able to find the answer that Niels gave me. But also look for the second part of this interview where Niels talks more specifically about how the film industry is often guided by fear, and how do you deal with that? How do you deal actually with chaos on the timeline, and how do you bring all this dynamic together? What are the role of these things, and how should we handle them? I hope this has been good for you guys. The last reminder is that if you have any questions regarding documentary production, documentary editing, pre-production, whatever it is that regards documentary, really go on howwefilm.com, scroll at the bottom of the homepage. There is a section there where you can ask any questions. I'll produce a video and I'll upload in the documentary question podcast online. It's going to be everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and so on. If you like this episode, subscribe, and guys, I'll see you in the next episode.